Hi everyone, it's Thursday afternoon and this is video number 399, your closing comment for today. Okay, so just a reminder here that we had a couple of big numbers this morning because it was Thursday. We had continuing claims which are again over a million. Expected a million, came in at 1,006,000. We had the quarterly GDP number, which is a very big number, but really only preliminary, down 31.7% versus expected 32.9, and those will change a great deal. But the most important thing, I think, was Chairman Powell speaking at the virtual Jackson Hole uh, confab, and what he had to say was not particularly calming, I think, to most people, and that is basically we haven't really hit our inflation targets, so we're going to figure out a new way to decide what inflation actually is. Obviously, Mr. Powell does not shop for food or sneakers or school supplies, because if he checked any of those things, he would see where the inflation is. In any event, the market was a split affair today. The Dow was up 160.35, or just under 0.6%. But the NASDAQ, after making a new high first thing this morning, finished down 39.72, about 1/3%. The S&P, new closing high, up 582, 0.17, and any close in the green for the S&P would have been a new high. The Russell caught up a little yesterday. If you recall, it was down 11 while everything else was up. Today it was up 4.37, or 0.28%. Transports were up 79. But what seems to be kind of interesting is that for the second day in a row, the VIX was up, and today it closed at 24.47, and that was up $1.20, or 5.6%. So, we look at the market internals, and the NYSE was barely 4-3 up. The NASDAQ was 9-8 down, and volume again was light. In the Dow, we had some big numbers, but in point of fact, it was pretty significantly 2 or 3 stocks. The first one was Walmart, on the news that they were going to do a deal with Microsoft to buy TikTok. I have no clue what Walmart would do with TikTok, but I guess smarter people than me did, because it was 136.63, and that was up 595, and that added 41 of those 160 Dow points. Microsoft closed 226.58, and it was up 543, or another 38 of those Dow points. In other news that I mentioned this morning and played out during the day, Abbott Labs, which got the approval for their new $5 15-minute quick test for COVID. The stock this morning had traded 117 in the pre-market, could only manage 114 in the real world, and finished the day at 111.29, up 8.10, still a respectable 7.85% number, but 117 on the high to close 111, it's a nice change, but it's much closer to the low than the high. Becton Dickinson, I mentioned this morning briefly. Now I know that they got a downgrade from Morgan Stanley. The stock actually did the opposite of Abbott. It got pounded early and traded as low as 232, but rallied during the day, and while it closed down 741 or 2.9%, it closed at 246. So 14 points, 14 and a half points off the low and much closer to the high. And the downgrade came with a new price objective of only 270 versus 285. After the close, we had a series of earnings, all of which were better. Ulta, which beat on top line and is currently trading 269, up 48 or 19%. Workday, another stay-at-home, work from home, work from anywhere kind of play. 243.32, up 26.49 or 12.6%. Remember that this is the same basic business as CRM was, and Workday, in fact, got a bounce on the CRM numbers and then continued higher again. Hewlett Packard, a beat on the top line, a little bit of a beat on the bottom line. Again, better sales to consumers. Lots of kids going to be home, lots of college kids. They all need printers, and the stock was trading 1936, up 60 cents, which is 3.1%. Gap had decent earnings, or actually a smaller loss. They lost 17 cents versus last year's 40 cents. And the stock is 18 and a half. That's up $1.12 or 6%. VMware, also cloud, 144.68, up $1.98 or 1.3%. And of course, what would a day without a new high on Tesla be? The high during the day was 22.95, but after the close, it rallied as high as 23.26. The last is 22.38, which is up 85.58. Kind of a small day, 3.97%. What a monster. Okay. The chart on the screen is something that I wrote up on Sunday, gave special attention to, and that is NAT.GAS. And while oil was down 35 cents, as you can see, NAT.GAS was higher. This is the weekly, and I use this chart in the market letter to show you this W formation, a double bottom, and starting back up. So let's go back to the daily so that you can see it a little more clearly. Here's the 9-month view. We wrote it up in here, saying that this was support, and that's exactly what it was. It was support at just under 250, and on the day, we closed 271, up 13.60. That is a big move. Most of these commodities trade on about 5% margin. And so a 5% move on 5% margin is a double in a day, to give you an idea of just how extreme this is. Going back to the weekly, to put it in a little better perspective, we are now approaching highs that we haven't seen in a while. This high of 290 was back in 2019. So this is a year of consolidation. Clearly, that double bottom W is a lot clearer here. The only issue here is that there should be some supply in this general area, this 275 to 290 area. And as you can see, the green line at around 272 or so is actually the slightly down sloping 200-day moving average. Gold had a really wild day today. The chairman's comments this morning took it up, and then it came down hard, but it still is not violating the new uptrend line that we have. Let me go back to the daily so that you can see this. Okay. Again, rallied hard this morning into resistance up here in the 1987 area, came all the way back down, hit the line, slightly higher high and higher low than yesterday, and again stopped exactly on that uptrend line. So that's kind of interesting. And what's interesting about it is that another trade that I've been harping on as being in a consolidation but looking like it could break, and I know that we discussed this morning, was the bonds. I mentioned that the bonds were looking weak. And here's what we have. This is the daily. This is a consolidation that goes all the way back here to the end of March, where it hits the bottom, it hits the top, it comes back down, it comes back up. We had this one break to the downside here and got right back into the same consolidation, hitting the high, hitting the low. In fact, we were short here from the high end of the channel to the low end of the channel. Very profitable trade. And then today, after all of the Powell comments, the bonds just collapsed. We closed pretty close to the low here, down 1 3/4. This is 176.24, down 1 3/4 points. That's a pretty extreme move too. And 1% in the long bond is, a big dip here. The reason that this begins to look a little bit more ominous is because we actually do have inflation. And no matter what Mr. Powell says, nobody is bigger than these markets. And people are selling bonds. Very clear. Okay, everyone. Hope everyone had a good day. By the way, we added to our put spread in the QQQ, and I'll show you what the NASDAQ looked like because that's what I'm keying off of. And we rallied again to a new high and closed down on the day. So, if I showed you the actual QQQ chart, you would see that we bounced off the upper Bollinger Band and closed in the red today. So it's got 19 more days to go on the spread, and it looks to me like we may have a little correction, even a correction down here from, this is 400 points or so. 400 points on a 12,000 number is certainly a normal and expectable pullback after a rally from 10,008 to today's high, 12,046. All right, everyone, have a good evening. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like us.